Welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happen every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Carolyn. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Send us an email at womensportsweeklypod@gmail.com, and we may feature your email on the Les. Women's Sports Weekly t-shirts are still here. This will be the last announcement of the pre-order form of the t-shirts on our podcast. So please, please, please complete the pre-order form by this Friday, April 18th. There are many options for t-shirts. There's purple tie-dye, black, white, and gray. Head over to our Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod and click on the link tree to complete the pre-order form. You will Venmo or PayPal me, Carolyn, and we will also include the pre-order form link in our show notes so you can click directly in there. The t-shirts are $35 and $5 for shipping. And if you live in Denver, we can coordinate a pickup. You don't have to pay for the shipping in that case. We won't deliver, but we will find a way to get the t-shirt to you in a pickup location. Again, the pre-order form closes this Friday. We have been overwhelmed by the amount of orders people are placing. I thought we were going to just try to hit our first goal, just to be able to actually make the order. I would have been happy with that, but we're actually at our third goal now, which is just like totally insane to me. This podcast can sometimes feel like we're talking into a void. And so it's nice to know that people are interested in ordering these. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And please continue to do so.
I really hope to see some in the wild. It'll be really fun to see some Women's Sports Weekly gear. And I know I'm very excited for the t-shirts that we ordered.
Obviously, we have such great friends and family who support us, and we're so appreciative of that. To see t-shirts that are going to be going to Arkansas and Iowa and these places where we know no one is just... it's surreal.
It is. So thank you, everyone. Looking forward to seeing them in the flesh. Also, we have Run Club again this week on Thursday night. We will be hosting this every Thursday. We meet at the 99ers Sports Bar at 6 p.m. In order to get 50% off your first draft, the secret word is draft for the WNBA draft that took place yesterday.
Make sure you come to Run Club and say the word draft to get 50% off your first draft.
Yeah, and Run Club's been really fun. We've been meeting different people each week, so I hope more people continue to come, especially with this great weather that we're having.
If you're looking for a reason to run, now is the time because it's real nice when we're running around the park in Denver. All right, Danielle, last week you were, what is it called when you were coming into the Easter time? What did Jesus do? He resurrected. You were in the process of resurrecting, and I feel like you're fully resurrected. How are you feeling?
I am feeling so much better than when I was sick at the Final Four. I think each day this week I've progressively gotten a little better. I've been
eating more calories.
Been eating more, running more. My runs at the beginning of the week were a little suspect. I was feeling a little clammy and still nauseous.
Well, you running at the beginning of the week was also suspect. Should you have been doing that?
Oh, I don't know. I waited till Wednesday, to be fair. I played basketball on Tuesday, which I was a little nervous about, and then started running again Wednesday. So I did take a few days off from being ill. Even this past weekend, I nailed my 20-miler. I think I've talked about this a while ago, but we haven't talked about it in a while. I have 2 marathons coming up in May.
Yes,
so
you do.
Not only was I super bummed for getting sick last week because of the Final Four, obviously, but I was like, oh my God, this is supposed to be peak week of training. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to get my runs in. I still missed one, but all things considered, was able to get a lot done this past week. So I'm just grateful. My body is feeling so much better and I can eat and just enjoy life
again. I also need to provide a clarification. So my sister listened to the podcast last week and then she called me and she was like, Carolyn, it kind of sounds like Danielle passed out. And then you said, okay, I'm going to the game. See you later. And so I just want to provide a little clarification. So Danielle did pass out at the Final Four a couple weekends ago. However, that was at 6 a.m. and the game was at 3 p.m. that day. So after she passed out, I stayed with Danielle. And then Danielle's sister, Carly, of Carly and Charlie, they were like, a company. They didn't go to the national championship game because they were supposed to have a flight that night. So they stayed with you for the first half. So I did not leave Danielle alone. And I was prepared to come home at halftime if needed. And Danielle said she was feeling okay. And she also said, if you stay home with me, I'm going to be very mad.
I'm not someone to hold back. If I want you to be somewhere, I'm letting you know it. And I told you I wanted you to go to that game.
And my family knows that I usually do what I want, right? But I was prepared and willing to stay home with Danielle. So I guess this is me just trying to justify that I am an okay person in this relationship. But I did check in with Danielle before I left her.
You would have known if I needed you to be there, and I did not want you to stay in the house when you had a game to go to.
Although, man, looking back on that game, maybe I should have just stayed with you and wallowed at our Airbnb.
No, but it is hard to believe a week ago the college basketball season came to an end. I feel like November, when it first started, was just yesterday. The season seemed to go really quick, and March went so fast with all the exciting games. It's just like a blur right now.
I know. We're still coming down from it. But let's get into the highlight reel for this week.
So we didn't mention last week, but 2 weeks ago, Elena Della Donne announced her retirement, which honestly did not come as a huge surprise to us because she hasn't really played in a few years. Ever since the bubble with COVID, Elena Della Donne has some health issues and she just hasn't been playing. So while there was a piece of me that hoped she would come back, when she did announce it, I figured that made sense, especially she's 35 now. She wrote in her Instagram post that her body accepted it before her mind did, but she knows this is the right thing to do. Elena Della Donne, you know this, Carolyn. She's up there for me.
Yes.
As one of my favorite players. Like, she's up there with Candace Parker. Candace Parker, I watched younger. Elena Della Donne's closer to our age. So I was in college when she was in college. She was a few years ahead. But like, I remember watching her at Delaware when they made runs in the tournament. And I remember just loving watching her. And then when she went to the WNBA, I was a huge fan.
And she was great in the WNBA.
Oh my gosh.
Like, amazing.
And I will list her accomplishments.
And she started at UConn and then decided to transfer out of UConn to go back to her home state of Delaware to be closer with family. And she's very big on family.
Specifically her sister.
Yes. Her sister, Lizzie, has autism and cerebral palsy. So she did want to be close to her because they have a close relationship and it was important to her. And we're going to talk more about the transfer portal, but this is like a great example of how the transfer portal can be so beneficial. She went on to have an amazing career at Delaware and then an amazing career in the WNBA. And I was hoping she was coming back. I was really hoping that maybe she would make an appearance at Unrivaled. I was like, that would be so cool if she was like, I'm going to come back and I'm going to come and compete in Unrivaled. But I know that the injuries and her body were just not cooperating the way she wanted.
We do want to share some of the highlights because some people might not even know Della Donne. People new to the WNBA because she hasn't played in a few years. She was so fun to watch. But going back to 2013, she was the second overall pick and she went to the Chicago Sky that year. Later on, before the 2017 season, she was acquired by the Washington Mystics. 2 years later, in 2019, she led the Mystics to their first WNBA championship in franchise history, which I remember watching them go to the championship.
I remember Ryan Rucco always saying, Della Donne.
Oh, yeah. The way he says her name is awesome. She played in the WNBA for 10 seasons. She was the first player in the league's history to be named MVP for two different organizations. Other players since then have done that, but she was the first one. So Chicago Sky in 2015, and then the Washington Mystics in 2019. Within the 10-year span that she played, she was also a 7-time All-Star. In 2021, she was named to the WNBA's 25 greatest and most influential players in league history, and this was part of the WNBA's 25th anniversary celebration. She was also a member of Team USA and won a gold during the 2016 Olympics in Brazil, and her career averages stand at 19.5 points, 6.7 rebounds, 1.9 assists, and 1.4 blocks per game. Another fun fact, she's considered to be one of the best free throw shooters
I didn't know that
in basketball.
And she's
all
a
time.
big.
Finished her career at 93.7% from the foul line.
I love that stat.
Yeah, I know you do because you get so mad at foul shots.
I get so mad at foul shots. It drives me crazy when people miss foul shots, but that's a cool one.
It is a huge loss for the basketball community just to see her completely retire and announce that she's officially done. Because like I said, I was just holding on hope that maybe she'd come back, but hell of a career.
You should follow her on Instagram if you don't, because she posts some funny things with her wife and her dogs, and then she has some side hustles that she does. She's making it work for her. But congratulations on your retirement, Elena Della Donne. We are going to miss having a player like her in the league.
For sure.
All right, let's get into this transfer portal news, because I'm sure by the time this episode releases, there will be even more news.
Yeah, I cannot keep up. I can't even say every day. It's like every time I open Instagram, there's another huge transfer. And I'm like, what is happening? I would imagine things would slow down now that the season's been over for a week and a lot of people just announced it right away. But I have a feeling it's not the end.
Last week, we talked about Olivia Miles entering the transfer portal out of Notre Dame. She is going to play at TCU.
This one really hurt me. I can't root for you in a TCU uniform. I'm sorry. I can't.
What is happening? Why is TCU getting players? Should someone tell us why we should like TCU?
Maybe. Good luck trying to convince me.
So that was an interesting one. I don't really know what to say. That's an interesting move. I guess it kind of tracks. Notre Dame is a Catholic university. TCU is Texas Christian. I don't know. That's the best I could come up with.
Clearly that coach has shown that he can take players and put a team together. They were called the Misfit Toys. He can pick up players from different schools and still create a team that goes far in the tournament. She must have seen something in that she liked.
And as a reminder, TCU, when we started this podcast, we were talking about how TCU was hosting open tryouts for their team because so many people got hurt. So their transformation has been huge. Do I think they're a national championship team? No. Is that what you want? I don't know. This is what I'm trying to figure out with all of these transfers. What are you looking for? Are you looking for money? Are you looking for a place to be the star? Or are you looking for a national championship? Because, man, personally, I would be looking for a national championship. And some of these moves are not yelling national championship to me.
There's also been some rumors. Is there beef between her and Hannah Hidalgo? But she went on Instagram Live and was like, I don't know why everyone is saying there's beef between me and Hannah. That is not true. So who knows? She's not the only one transferring out of Notre Dame. I think because she's one of their star players, that's what made it so alarming almost. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what is happening? Maybe she was close with the senior class and now that they're leaving, she just doesn't want to be there. I don't really have an understanding around it.
Now I'm thinking about what I just said of I would want to choose for a national championship. And I realize that might come from a place of privilege, right? Some of these players are I need to make money. And I don't know what the case is for Olivia Miles, but I'm going to stick with my reasoning because I think if you do play for a national championship team, you have a better chance of making money in the long run. So not just the time that you're in college, but over a longer period of time, because I think it sets you up to play in the WNBA. But there are so many of these factors, right? Because some people might be looking at it and I'm probably not going to play in the WNBA. So I need to find ways to make money right now. And this is the way to do that. And so I just want to honor that as well, that might be some of the decisions. Again, I don't think that's Olivia Miles.
No, she was predicted to be number 2 overall pick this year. Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
I just want to put light on some of the context that could be here for so many of the players deciding to enter into the transfer portal. Another surprising one to me was out of Duke, Aluchi Okanawa.
Yeah, that hurts Duke bad.
Yeah, I said Duke's going to be a Final Four team next year. This is a strange move for me. We haven't seen a lot of movement out of Duke. So I was just like, what is going on? What's going on?
I just look at some of these coaches. I'm like, Olivia Miles is going to leave Coach Neil Ivey. And now you have Okanawa is going to leave
Kara Lawson.
They're both great coaches. And obviously we don't know the dynamics between the players and the coach. But from an outsider perspective, I'm just like, what is happening here? I love Audie Crooks from Iowa State because I think people were kind of on her, are you going to transfer? And this was weeks ago. And she was like, people need to stop asking me. The grass is greener where you water it, and I'm not going anywhere. Yeah. And I think that's such an important perspective to have, especially in college. And I think that's very mature. But a lot of these players, they just see something's going to be better. But that's not always true.
Yeah, I agree.
we looked at Haley Van Lith. Yeah, TCU ended up working out for her, but her time at LSU was not good. And before that, she thrived at Louisville. And we see USC this year. Kiki Uriafin, I think, did better at Stanford and some of these other players. So just overall, I just wonder how these decisions are made and are they the best decisions?
You learn a system with a team. Like every coach has a system that they like to operate in, a culture. And when you transfer, you have to relearn all of that. If you're used to one system and then this coach has a totally different system, that takes time to get settled in. And then obviously we need to talk about Mylasia Fulwiley.
Oh, yeah, this one hurt too.
Entering the transfer portal, plays for South Carolina. She just finished her sophomore year. I knew this was coming. I had a bad feeling it was coming.
You did. You called it.
And I didn't call it here on the podcast because I make a lot of assumptions that are not always correct. A lot aren't, but some are. And I texted in a group chat with our friends Lex and Sarah. I saw that post-game press conference where she had these big tears, and it broke my heart to see her so upset after the national championship game. But I could tell with the way she was speaking that she was considering leaving. She may have already made up her mind at that point, but you could just tell those tears held more weight than just a national championship game. I don't think this decision was made over one day. I really hope it wasn't. But South Carolina did pick up out of the transfer portal FSU's Tania Latson. It's another guard and the leading scorer this past year in NCAA. I don't know if Mylasia saw that and said, I'm going to be on the bench again, and that's not what I want.
I don't think that's it. She has not played a ton of minutes this year. I think she looks at herself and she's like, I'm so good, I should be playing more, and I can be playing more somewhere. I can't imagine it's because of this transfer.
And it did seem that Dawn Staley was harder on her, right? But I struggle with this. This is another thing. It's hard for me to even zoom out and see the big picture here because I feel like I'm in it as a South Carolina fan. And I feel like this happens to the players too. They're so in it that I feel like they struggle to see the big picture. But yes, Dawn is hard on you. Dawn was also a point guard, and she's really good at developing that position, that guard position. And I just feel like, I just don't know if it's the right decision. And I don't know if I'm saying it's not the right decision because I'm such a South Carolina fan. Like, I don't know if I'm jaded by it all. And I really want players to be happy. We were talking about Elena Della Donne. She made a transfer decision to make herself happy, and it was a great one for her. So I just feel so torn about this all because I think it's hard to see the big picture. I think NIL money really complicates things. And this transfer portal moving into this kind of free agency mixed with the money, it's really difficult.
I don't know what the answer is, but I feel like there has to be some more restrictions.
And now teams are just hiring general managers to work all of this out, like the money that's being provided, the deals, all of it, because head coaches can't do that on top of their head coaching duty and recruiting and all of this other stuff that they have to do. So now we're going to have a general manager, and it's just like, is that what we want? And the answer may be yes. I'm so supportive of NIL. I think it's great that these players are making money, and I think they should be making money. And I do think there needs to be some added regulation so it's not just like preying on kids, young kids, with an opportunity to make more money and not thinking about long-term goals and their long-term success.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my soapbox.
Guess we'll see what happens. Be on the lookout. And like we said, sure, more will happen, and we'll find out where these kids are going to land.
Yeah, so I'm sure by the time this episode releases, we may know some of these answers. All right, let's get into the U.S. women's national team. They had a friendly match last week. It was their second match against Brazil, and they lost to Brazil 2-1. Kat Macario scored for the U.S. just 34 seconds into the match, which is always like, okay, we're off to a good start. Kat Macario was actually born in Brazil, and she moved to San Diego when she was 12 and then made the decision to play with the U.S., which is kind of cool. Yeah. But then in the 24th minute, Brazil ties it right back up with a goal from Carolyn. The pace of this game was very fast. It was frenzied. The defenses, especially the U.S. defense, at some points it was like, whoa, what's happening with the defense? But they held on, and we go into stoppage time, and it's like, okay, this is going to end in a tie. That's a good thing. Like, great. We can learn a lot from this. But in stoppage time, Brazil brings in Amanda Gutierrez, and she comes off the bench and she scores in stoppage time to put Brazil ahead 2-1. It was like
such a bummer.
I know. I think everyone was a little bit shocked. This was Brazil's first time beating the U.S. in the U.S., first time ever, and the first time beating the U.S. since 2014. We do need to point out that the lineup for the U.S. was very young. The average age was 22.3 years old.
Wow.
Which is very, very
so young.
That was the average age of the starting 11. The average appearances for the starting 11 was 17.9. And that number I read would have dropped to, I believe it was 8 if they removed Emily Sonnet. Like Emily Sonnet, because she has over 100 caps, kind of pulled that up. Yeah. Very inexperienced players, very new players, very young players for the U.S. And obviously the U.S. losing is never fun, but Emma Hayes has been very clear about her direction with this team. She is on a clear path to wanting the U.S. to win these major tournaments and do really, really well in the long run. But in order to do that, she said she needs to build the player pool and get younger players experience. And that's exactly what she's doing. I don't hate it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what these games are for, right?
Exactly.
Like, if you're not doing that now, then when?
Exactly. And she said, if I wanted short-term success, I could put a roster out there for short-term success, but that's not going to lead to long-term success. And I think that's such a good way to put it.
Yeah.
We have some more friendlies coming up this summer. They're actually coming to Denver, but not this next one. The national team's next game is against China on May 31st in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Awesome. Excited to see more soccer. And with that, I am going to talk about women's lacrosse. Over the weekend, number 2 Boston College played against number 10 Virginia. Boston College ended up winning this game 24-11, which seems like a blowout, but the game was fairly close, probably through the middle of the third, and then Boston College really started to pull away. So at the start, Boston College established an early 6-1 lead, but Virginia was able to narrow the gap 7-6. And then Boston College, right before halftime, came back with 3 consecutive goals. So at halftime,
from one person,
Emma Lapinto, who I'll talk about in a little bit. But at halftime, they went in Boston College up 10-6. So again, in lacrosse, I feel like because they score so many goals, this was really not that big of a lead.
Poor goalies. I'll never get over it.
I know. It's a rough position. But Boston College, the Eagles really took control in the second half and scored 7 goals in both the third and fourth quarters.
It was their senior day. They went off.
Yeah.
And the weather was so crappy and people were going wild in the stands.
And I was at one point in the third quarter watching, like, I would look down and all I kept hearing was Rachel Clark. Like, Rachel Clark kept scoring. So seniors Rachel Clark and Emma Lapinto, who we've talked about quite a bit last year during the lacrosse season, they had 7 goals each, matching their season highs. Boston College is having a great year, obviously number 2, but going into the end of the season and beating a top 10 team that well is a good sign for them going into getting closer to playoffs. Boston College already concludes the regular season against number 11 Syracuse at the end of this week. I said to you earlier, it's so frustrating to me because basketball ends and then it already feels like lacrosse and softball, like the spring sports are coming to a close. And I feel like I spend so much time watching basketball that I miss out on some of those spring sports because they just get, like, in my view, thrown to the wayside because I'm focused on basketball. But I'm really hoping to watch a lot of games in the upcoming weeks before the season wraps up.
And conference tournaments and then the NCAA tournament take longer than you think. So
yeah, it will go through like end of May, but I still feel like, oh my gosh, the regular season's coming to a close. It just feels so quick.
I agree.
But if you haven't watched lacrosse, now is a great time. If you're like us and love basketball, and now that that's over and the WNBA hasn't started, check out college lacrosse. Check out college softball. There's going to be some really good games coming up, and 'tis the season.
Yes, weather is nice. Go watch some softball and lacrosse. All right, let's get into our deep dive this week. And we're actually going to get into the LES first, the Listener Experience Zone. So this is where listeners can reach out to us at womensportsweeklypod@gmail.com. They can send us an email and we may read your email on the podcast. We are going to do that now, and then we're going to get into our deep dive. This is from listener Britt, and Britt is a friend of ours, and also just need to plug a shout out again that Britt helped us get ready for Unrivaled. She helped prepare us and told us what we should do, what we could do because of her background. So this is the email from Britt. Hi friends, before we get too far out from March Madness, there's a topic I'd love to see discussed covered more. We've got to talk about Kim Caldwell and look at the larger issue of sacrifices/choices high-level female coaches and women everywhere have faced when it comes to childbirth and work. I feel like it gets either glossed over or celebrated that Caldwell missed only a week of work after giving birth. And with her grant extension announced recently, one certainly understands the pressure she likely felt to return quickly. I don't know how she feels about it and don't mean to project, but women can't have it all. And my sense is that female basketball coaches, and again, women everywhere, have been quietly dealing with this for decades and longer. Caldwell's case is just the latest, but paints a clear picture of why the fast return to work is so essential for their career success. And likely there's massive personal cost to that. I'm curious about Kim Mulkey, Pat Summit, and even Becky Hammon in the W. I'm sure there's plenty more. Britt. So let's just give some context. So Kim Caldwell is the Tennessee women's basketball coach. She was pregnant during this past season. She had her baby in January and was back a week later to the applause of many people. I think moms get enough scrutiny as it is. Mm-hmm. So this discussion is not going to be around criticizing Kim's decision to come back, but I do want to talk about like the societal reaction of it and women in general having to make these decisions and the idea of having it all. Mm-hmm. So when she did come back, there was this strange response on social media where people were really applauding her and like, oh my God, this is so cool. This is great. And I'm like, she just had a baby a week ago. Like, I think that decision was probably very difficult for her to make. And there's so much nuance there. It was her first year as a head coach. She didn't have her contract extension yet. She got her contract extension in March. And I'm like, did she feel pressure that she had to return so that she could get that contract extension? Like, there's so much to that. And we've seen many new moms now, as we're in our mid-30s. You're in your early 30s. I'm now approaching my mid-30s. We've seen a lot of new moms very recently. And honestly, every new mom that we've seen in their first week of having a baby, it feels like a bomb has gone off. Yeah. And they are just trying to pick up the pieces and figure out which way is up. And like Britt mentioned, there is this expectation that women can do it all. And you're applauded if you do that, if you decide to come back to work early, if you have so many things going on and you're juggling it all. But I don't really think that's possible. When people say, oh, she can have it all, women can have it all, I'm like, I don't think that's possible. There is a personal cost to that. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to talk about that a little bit more. We know that women are so resilient and really can take on a lot. But I do think that is a learned behavior. And I want to talk a little bit about how we talk about players. So many of the players that we have met, both professional and in college, have been so gracious with their time. They've been so accommodating to us. We talk about it in such a positive way. And I've been thinking about it more. And I'm like, yes, but that is a learned behavior as a person playing in women's sports, as a woman. We say it in a nice way, but women players have to do that or else they're going to get criticized for being a bitch, for being snobby, for being too cocky. We always put women in this position where they do need to do that in order to be accepted. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think it's similar for becoming a parent. For most people, gone are the days where one person in the couple stays home and watches the kid and does the child rearing and the other person goes to work. Like, that is just not the economy that we live in anymore. And most people in relationships, both people have to work. And again, I'm not talking about Kim Caldwell in this situation. I'm saying, like, for most couples in America who decide to have children, you're both going back to work. And so there are so many mothers who need to do it all. And especially in straight relationships, there are so many women who are taking on the duties of going back to work, providing for their family financially, and then coming home and continuing that and doing all of the childcare duties and a lot of the household duties. We see some good men out there, but they are not as common as some of the others.
Yeah. And with all this, like, we've celebrated Kim Caldwell. We've celebrated athletes coming back and playing incredible after childbirth. And I guess I've not really thought about it from this perspective of, are we adding more pressure to the situation? I come from a place of, and in my head, I'm like, oh, this is what you want to do. Like, you want to be back and you're making it work and you're having a kid and you're still doing what you love. And maybe that's the case for some, and maybe there's more pressure for others. It is interesting. I do think it's different for everyone. I think some people want to have a kid and want to go right back to work. But that doesn't take away how difficult it is, no matter what the situation is.
And there's a personal cost to that, right? I think about for myself, I'll let you speak for yourself, but we're both pretty career driven and we like our work that we do. And so we don't have any kids yet, but I could imagine that if and when we do, that I will probably want to go back to work at some point. And so I'm not saying that every person who has a kid wants to stay home with their kid. I don't think that's true either.
Yeah.
I do think that there is just a personal cost to it. Like, you can't be 100% at work and 100% at home.
No.
You cannot. There's not enough percentages. So something has to give somewhere. And I do think that falls on the woman so much to do that.
I agree.
To give something. So if they're going to be 100% at work, then they're not going to be at home. And if they are then making the decision to be like, I'm going to focus on raising my kids, then work is going to take a hit. And I don't think that's discussed enough. We're like, she's doing everything. And I'm like, she's probably not. She probably has a ton of help. And I bet goes home and feels so torn. And this is totally me projecting, but Kim Caldwell has said, I felt bad not being near my team. And I'm sure when she's with her team, she's like, I hope my child's okay. Like that's very real. And yeah, I just don't think you can have it all. We have conversations a lot about having kids. It obviously for us can't happen by accident. It takes a little bit of planning for us to do that. And so for that reason, we have had a ton of conversations. And we, to be totally candid and honest, we started the process of like, okay, let's do this. And then recently put a pause on it.
Yeah.
And so can you talk a little bit about why we did that?
I think mentally I've been having a few freakouts about it and not exactly ready to have our life change in that way. I know at the end of the day I want kids, but I'm just like, don't feel ready. And I know a lot of people say you're never going to feel ready, which is even more difficult because it's like, how do you know what the answer is?
Yeah.
And a year ago, we had this timeline in our heads and we were ready to go through with it. Now that timeline, I'm like, I need to throw out the window. I think it put too much pressure on myself just to get to that point that I'm not ready to be at yet. I don't know.
It's difficult. It's a difficult decision. And we've had conversations of like, what is our life going to look like? And then how are we going to manage? Are we ever ready?
Yeah.
When is good timing? And then on top of that, you have a biological clock as a woman.
Yeah.
The good thing about it not happening on accident is that we have to be very intentional of like, this is what we're doing and we're making the choice to do this. And then on top of that, because we think so much, there's also a part of me that was like, well, if it just happened by accident, we would make it work. Right.
Yeah.
But like when you're making the decision so intentionally, it does add more of like, are we ready for this? And do we want our life to change so drastically? And knowing that we can't have it all and we are happy with each other in our relationship and we are happy with our friends and our family and our niece and nephews. It's just like, I don't know.
I know. And all the activities we do, it's like a lot of that's just going to have to go to the wayside. And I'm like, am I ready for that?
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Yeah, and we see people with kids who are very happy with their kids. I know Chapel Roan just went on a Call Her Daddy and said none of her friends with kids are happy. We do see them struggle, but we do see them very happy. And like no one I know has said to me that they've regretted having their kids. Maybe that'll come later down the line, but no one I know has done that. And then we do also see people without kids who are very happy as well. And it's so difficult to make that decision. And I feel like for you, and you could speak more about it, but I feel like in you and your heart, you have this calling to be a mom. Is that true?
Yeah, I feel that. And it's kind of like makes me feel guilty that I don't feel ready yet. But I know deep down, I want that. I always say to you, I know if I woke up at age 15 and didn't have kids, I will regret it.
Yeah.
Not that I can predict the future, but I just know I want a family with you. It's just a matter of when we're ready to start that.
And I responded to you and I said, I put that in my head. When I turn 50 and I wake up in the morning and we didn't have kids, how would I feel? And I was like, I think I would feel okay. And then I flipped it again and I said, if we're at 50 and we do have kids, am I going to regret it? And I don't feel like I am. Like I feel so neutral about it.
Which makes it also difficult.
It does make it a lot more difficult. And I do totally honor that, because before we got married, we had a conversation and you said kids are very important to me. And I said, I'm on board. Like, I'm here. And also this idea of changing our life so much in a way that's going to be beautiful, in a way that I don't think we're going to regret. And I'm just speaking for us. It's a big, big decision.
Yeah.
It's a big decision.
It is. And we're not pro athletes and we're not coaches on this grand stage. And I look at those people and I'm like, it's really incredible that you do it all. And again, it's like, what sacrifices are you making?
There's so much sacrifice that goes into it. And I will say that us not being professional athletes, us being okay and being able to have kids, that comes with its own things, because we have to think about childcare. Like there's so many things you need to think about, and you do think about, this child is not choosing to come into this world. We're bringing them in. There's a lot of pressure there. I feel a lot of pressure. I want to make sure that I'm ready and ready to be all in. And it's a tough decision.
It is.
And women can't have it all. And we're expected to just be certain ways and be 100% at work and then be 100% at home. And it just can't happen. And we've had a lot of conversations of like, how is this going to affect our relationship? Because it is. It is.
We see it with people all the time.
Yes.
And it's not always negative, but the dynamic, it just changes. Like you cannot have kids and your relationship not change. That's not how it works.
Yeah. And how do you maintain, and I'm getting even deeper here, but I do think work provides me with a sense of self, right? And like my identity. And there is this idea that in order to raise a kid, you have to pour so much and take away some of your identity. And then I think the counter to that is like, no, your kid needs to see that you have your own self-esteem and do your own thing to be like a normal human, right?
Yeah.
And I look at my mom, like my mom and my dad were divorced when I was so young. And my mom has done such a good job of maintaining her personal relationships, maintaining her work and professional career, but that came at a cost. Like I remember being young and my mom was working on top of her job. She would work one night a week. She would go and work as a coat check to make extra money during Christmas time. And I hated not having her home. It just drove me crazy. I wanted that time with her when I was younger. And so there are just these sacrifices that people make in order to do it. But then I do look at her and I'm like, she found a way to manage. But I don't know if that's how, I would have to ask her. I don't know if that's exactly how she would have wanted her life to look.
I do think people in these other roles that we're talking about, like you said, have more help. I think the kids live an interesting life. They're on the road more.
Yep.
They're growing up in the gym, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just different. And everyone makes it work for their situation. I don't know at the end of the day what the answer is, or maybe it's okay the way things are and people are happy. It's hard to say because every situation's so different.
Yeah. And people make it work, right? Like people always find ways to just make it work within what they've got. So I don't know. We don't really have an answer to this one. It's something interesting to ponder, but I do think at the end of the day, decisions are made and sacrifices are made, and they could be beautiful and they could also really hurt, and they could actually be both. Like they can be beautiful and hurt.
Yeah. But thanks for the question, Britt. It's a good topic to cover, and would love to hear other people's thoughts. Like if we have listeners who have kids, I would love to hear how they've navigated that and just their thoughts, because we're talking about this topic not having kids, and I think someone who has kids would have a totally different perspective. Yeah. So if someone has a totally different perspective, I would honestly love to hear it. So
definitely, we're definitely missing pieces. You can tell if you're listening that we're so in it right now. I'm so in it that I don't know if I can see the big picture on this one, because it's something that we're currently struggling with, of like, when is the right time? When do we do it? And what does it mean for us when we do it?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's get into what we are looking forward to this week. Start us off, Danielle.
As I mentioned earlier, NCAA lacrosse is in full swing. Boston College will conclude its regular season against number 11 Syracuse on April 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern on ACC Network. A lot of the other teams are also wrapping up their seasons, and then playoffs start. So like I said, take a look at the schedule and watch some games. What are you looking forward to?
The NWSL is back in action after that little break due to international play. The Washington Spirit take on the Orlando Pride this Saturday, April 19th at 5 p.m. Eastern on ION. The Orlando Pride are currently undefeated. It is very early in the season, so it feels strange to say that. And the Washington Spirit only have one loss to the KC Current, so this is going to be a great little match. So check it out.
That is it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports and share the podcast with your friends. Rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Thanks for joining us.
Go order a t-shirt.
Woo!